My former religion protects abusers.
Oh, yeah.
Most of my maternal family are Scientologists, generational Scientologists, and we also have a problem in my family with generational molestation. And my grandfather may or may not have started it, but he was in Scientology, and then his son. And this has been found out over the years. Different victims, different generations, different times. And the solution in that moment, Scientology decides that it would be bad for our family to send the abuser to jail, because in jail or prison they will not be rehabilitated. So instead, they internally handle it. They say our technology is going to cure this person. So they charge that person money. They monetize the crime, and then they do a bunch of stuff and they get absolved. The police are never called, authorities are never told, and in most cases those children are put back into the same environment with that abuser. Meanwhile, in my case, if you're the victim, it's, well, what did you do? So now Scientology is monetizing this on two sides, right? I'm paying to find out what I did to pull in this horrible crime, and the perpetrator is now paying to get absolved. So there's a system built into that, and it's, my story, that's not a unique situation.
I don't know how long, I can't really be that long, actually, now that I think about it. It can't be too many generations back that somebody can be a Jehovah's Witness, because though people falsely equate the original Charles Taze Russell branch, which was not a religion, it was a organized group of Bible students, people who studied the Bible and debated it. They were basically a organized debate group, is what they really were. And they did analysis, therefore. They consistently invited people of all different backgrounds and conditions and faiths and economics and everything else to come in from anywhere in the world, in fact, to their official meetups, to literally give their own perception, their own understanding, their own interpretation of various scriptures in the Bible, so they could debate it with each other, so they could try to expand their understandings more and potentially come to a consensus eventually on what actually may have been conveyed at the time, and then translate into this, and thus maybe the translation matches or it doesn't. Either way, you can figure it out. That's all that was, which is the International Bible Students, is what they were officially called. People conflate them, including Ex-JWs and current JWs, they conflate them together all the time as if they are literally the same thing. They are not. And Jehovah's Witnesses only formed when Rutherford went and took over by hijacking the International Bible Students from Russell when he was on his deathbed. And he also hijacked and forged his will so that he could have legal custody of the group. And therefore he went and formed what we now know as Jehovah's Witnesses. That was, I believe, in the 20s, 1920s, roaring 20s. So even if it was the 30s or 40s, either way, it doesn't matter. The 20 years is not that big of a difference, because that's not very many generations back, realistically. The average generation, especially for the last 40 to 50 years, is about every 33 years on average, in the US at least, you have a new generation that properly forms, because it's usually around age 33, age 34, the last 40, 50 years, that couples decide to have kids and thus become parents, starting their own families. Therefore, that starts the new generation. So not generations as we think of them in a colloquial sense nowadays, but rather literal sense in terms of when you start a family. 40 years would be 80s, 50 years would be 60s. Again, it's not that far back. And then you have another 50 years, the exact same amount of time, left to the start of the religion. It's important to note that, because that then suggests that again, it might give more validity to the theory that it's genetic, and it might be tied to Scandinavian genes, which would be bizarre, but more plausible than it is connected to the Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses help protect those people, though, for exactly as the Scientologist guy just described the Scientologists do it. The big word, the key word there was internally. Handle it internally. That is exactly the phrase that Jehovah's Witnesses use the most. We have to handle this internally, because it basically wipes them clean, or at least protects they themselves as the corporation from potentially having legal repercussions brought against them or having police involvement. And it's also very well known that a lot of these places, the governing body or the leading elders, circuit overseers, whatever, will tell and instruct them to burn, literally fucking burn, if not shred, any and all copies of the elder meetings or elder review boards that are reviewing these reports from their own members in these congregations that report these crimes, whether they're amongst their family in this case or otherwise. They keep it to themselves, and then they have them shred or burn them if they find out that the police will in fact be coming, or a higher level authority potentially may be coming to investigate. They instruct them as soon as they find out to fucking get rid of them, because they do not want records of this, because again, it would be bad for them legally. It would be bad for them in optics, advertising, in other words, how they're perceived by the very people that they call worldly and apostates, ironically. Back to that point again, which, because it doesn't make sense, but it's so commonplace. You get the picture, how it's all connected. But that's why I mention both of these things together, because though, yes, the Jehovah's Witnesses and their doctrine absolutely would help protect these child molesters and families or otherwise, or other sex crime people, at the end of the day, it's not what creates them, but it is what protects them. Because it's the same thing with any other religion, or becoming a police officer, a security guard, you know, some sort of a doctor. Usually it's like a psychiatrist or something, especially for pediatrics, go figure. Or it's like becoming a politician, because it gives you a certain level of celebrity, so public figure status, and the general public is always going to view you in a much more trustworthy light. And they're also going to not just trust you implicitly a lot more, they're going to actually back you up defensively, even if they know nothing about you and nothing about your background or what people are experiencing with you that they're reporting. They will back you up by default, because you now have a professional title that's going to grant you a certain level of just psychological immunity to the average everyday layman. But not only that, but in, you know, legal cases and investigations, you get even more immunity. You get even more trust that you genuinely probably should never have had in the first place, just because you happen to be a member of a church. Especially the higher rank in the hierarchy of a church you are, the more immunity and the more automatic trust you get from everybody, to where they're like, nah, that person's got to be making it up, or they got to be exaggerating, they got to be lying, or whatever else. They'll come up with any excuse they can, because, and again, ultimately the whole point is that this is why these people, these abusive, horrible predators and people, almost always flock and choose to go into religions, police departments, the medical field, politics, or, you know, teaching jobs or whatever else, because they give them a certain level of automatic trust, protection, and defense from the general public that gives them a little bit more immunity and a more time to potentially fabricate also a defense story, say this is why this is not true.
That's designed.
It's designed. Yeah. It is designed, and it's financially beneficial for the organization. Not to mention, when they have dirt on somebody, then they're that much more controllable. Children are at risk. Children are at risk, not just from Scientology's direct practices, but from the perpetrators. And some of these people, let me tell you, they've been doing the same thing 40, 50 years.
Yep.
And new children come in, and it happens again and again.
Yep.
You all have that two-witness rule.
Yes. Yeah. Basically, their rule is that if there aren't two witnesses to a crime, whether it's child abuse or something else, then they will just kind of say, well,
it didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
That's so infuriating, because most of the most horrible things that happen between two people, and there are no witnesses.
It almost never
Otherwise,
happens that there are two witnesses. So they also don't have a procedure to call the police if the crime is reported to them. They don't call themselves mandatory reporters. So they, you know, if elders are, if they hear, when they hear of these cases, they take personal notes. Like every Jehovah's Witness has files on them that are like every sin you've ever committed or whatever. But they're not necessarily going to do anything with that information. They're just going to hold on to it. So there's no accountability for them.
But there's documents that they have created that show the abuse.
They have a database at headquarters of tens of thousands of reports of child sexual abuse. The lawyers, like the Zalkin law firm, who've represented a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who've been hurt, he's talked about it. And yet they were told years ago to start destroying records in individual congregations. And when states like Pennsylvania go after them, they have to, I don't know, put a...
Scramble.
Yeah, well, Watchtower is told basically you can't destroy anything, right? But we all know they did. I mean,
Right.
it's easy to shred things, right? And so
And burn,
if I shred
yeah.
it, it never happened. Of course, it never happened to them anyway, because it's all about keeping up appearances and not bringing reproach
Yep.
upon Jehovah's name.
Right.
So they've got to make Jehovah look good. Jehovah's Witnesses must have a clean reputation at all costs, and that cost is often children, and
Yeah.
they're okay
Oh,
with
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It was
I have to re-reference the Truman Show because, especially the whole keeping up appearances thing, that is so Truman Show. That is the literal fucking point of the Truman Show. Is never look at the man behind the curtain, right? Therefore, Wizard of Oz. It's all about deception, and I think also this is why a lot of ex-JWs really not just love watching, because it is a genuinely damn good series, but they love reciting or referencing back to, and they think a lot about like Severance and the whole plot and how it develops and everything, because they're like, like literally Back to the Future. Wait, I've seen this in one before. It's a classic because it fucking is. It's something you literally experienced, you've lived through, because welcome to Jehovah's Witnesses. It's like the same kind of thing again. Except in this case, again, you're kind of looking on the inside instead. And it's like, welcome to fucking JW 101 shit. Like, you're basically, you're looking at a corporatized, or a more standard corporate liminal space version of Severance. The more I watch Severance, the more I think of Jehovah's Witnesses again. And especially, actually, the Kingdom Halls. Dude, because it hit me in that moment. I'm like, fuck. Like, fucking... Kingdom Halls are liminal spaces, actually. It's so weirdly more Severance-like. Because not only are the people like fucking how corporate Severance works, right? The corporation there works. It's the same with like the space that is the Kingdom Hall when you're inside of it. At least the last few times I've been in any Kingdom Halls that way. Especially the more normal-sized Kingdom Halls. A soulless liminal space with like corporate MIDI music that you get in the experience of when you're by yourself in the fucking bathroom. As the fucking song plays. Oh, God. It's so fucking trippy to, like, watch Severance and then be like, fuck! That's literally a Kingdom Hall! And the way the people work there. All the way up to the top. It's fucking, yeah. There's a lot of fucking parallels in those kinds of things. Yeah, it's very interesting. I think that's why a lot of people use also Matrix references with the, with J-dubs. And then a really obvious one is Borg. The reference to the Borg in fucking Star Trek is a very common fucking reference that ex-JWs especially will make about, especially the way that the programming works. Yeah, it's really interesting how much sci-fi is almost... It's almost as if... Because Scientology literally is based off of entirely off of sci-fi that L. Ron Hubbard wrote, his book. I can't remember if that book was actually called Dianetics or not. I think it was. Either that he wrote that one afterward, but whichever sci-fi book it was, it was literally a sci-fi book that he realized he could fucking profit off of if he turned it into a religion, and thus it was born. Literally, that's as simple as it is. That's literally how fucking Scientology got formed. Whereas Jehovah's Witnesses technically wasn't formed out of Scientology, sci-fi. Science fiction, but for fuck's sake, there's so many parallels. You have to see, it almost makes you scream to yourself and into the gallows that, like, yeah, it's literally straight out of a fucking sci-fi dystopic film, you know? It's fucking wild. So yeah, it's like silent, dead silent. And especially the bathroom especially. You're in the fucking bathroom, dead silence, except for the softly playing Kingdom Hall music. And you're just there. You will realize how identical it is, how truly liminal it is, to where it's like, this is the perfect setting for a fucking horror scene. It really fucking is. Especially post-apocalyptic, when like everything's gone silent. There's nobody around. And like for some reason you just hear like the drone of a fucking old refrigerator suddenly kick on as it starts to set his refrigerant out and the soft Kingdom Hall music playing and the lights are on in the bathroom, but like everything else is just like flickering and the B&B school are pitch black and it's just like, like, no, I'm gonna die here. No, I'm okay with that. No, I'm not. I gotta go.
One of the final nails for me when I left the organization was learning about the practices. I watched the Australian Royal Convention. It was basically an inquisition by the Australian government to, in part, Jehovah's Witnesses, I think, were part of it.
Just part of it.
It was basically looking at the shunning practice and then also the reporting practice for child sex abuse. And basically saying, if a child is victimized, there is next to never going to be a witness. And so there was no mandated reporting and things like that. But kind of in further investigation, I looked up the settlements and I looked up how much money Jehovah's Witnesses were paying out to settle these cases before they even got to court. And I think in 1 year it was over $40 million. And they are 100% a voluntary donation-based organization. So what
No, they're not.
basically like got me was like, my dollars
They're a
are going to
corporation.
that. And like that,
All this litigation.
literally, and
Yeah.
they keep it out of the news. They also create a culture where you are not only not encouraged to look outside the organization, you're punished if you do. If you ask certain questions,
Discouraged.
if you even not look into apostate literature, but if you look into actual news sources, you're taught basically just to look the other way. And so the ignorance within the organization of what's actually happening is so insane. So even, it was similar to you, it literally, I was snowed in a hotel and I watched one day of videos and I was like, this is all a lie. Like it crumbled so quickly. That's why they don't want you to look outside of it.
They will not acknowledge it. They will act as if they are like attackers that are like coming at them. They never apologize. They never have accountability, and they continue all the practices. They don't implement the changes that any of these.
Well, they also take these court cases and use them as evidence as persecution, which basically like reinforces the cult mindset that like, look, the world's against us, and then
That's the
everyone
point.
huddles together.
We're doing the right thing. They're after us.
Yes, but the
That's the
irony too,
entire
on the
point.
other side, when the governing body are under oath, they take a completely different stance too when they're talking to government officials versus what they
coached.
turn around and say inside.
Theocratic warfare.
Yeah, it's so manipulative.
They're allowed to lie to the
Yeah.
public.
It's exactly the same in Scientology in
I
19.
actually completely forgot about the term theocratic warfare. I actually remembered hearing some elders talking about that at that hall. I was talking about that congregation that I grew up most of the time in. I heard about that mentioned. And in fact, I think there was a Watchtower article. I think that's why they were talking about it. I'm pretty sure that literally talked about theocratic warfare, which is just like, like it's too fucking obvious and on the nose, like to not notice. Like, okay, that's not normal. Like that seems a little bit of self-exposure, but okay.
1984, a UK High Court judge ruled in an actual judgment that Scientology is a dangerous, harmful movement that is out to capture people, especially children and impressionable young people, and yet they are still continuing to operate in exactly the same way they currently are today. Just look at the Danny Masterson case, right? And it's, Claire Headley testified in a court of law as an expert witness that Scientology prevents you from reporting anything to law enforcement. It's considered a crime in Scientology. If you report another Scientologist to law enforcement or you sue another Scientologist, you are punished for that. So of course they protect abusers, because if they don't, you're punished.
I assume that a lot of people will probably watch this that are not from Jehovah's Witnesses or Scientology. But the fact is that they're not only not protecting the kids in these organizations, but these are predators. And they're in your communities. And in our case, they might have been knocking on your doors. I don't know about yours, but in any case, they're out there in the community, and just like our kids weren't safe, neither are any of yours. If you're watching this, there are probably tens of thousands of Jehovah's Witnesses in a database who have been stated to have done something, and they're just out there doing their thing. And
Tens of thousands more that aren't in a database because they're being protected from having any kind of, actual law enforcement done to them because they hide it. Again, there's tens of thousands of cases throughout just the last 30 years where they literally know that there's been a lot of this child abuse, molestation, whatever else, yet within Jehovah's Witnesses. And yet, because they protect it so much, and then they do the fucking destruction of records, that they just legally they get there too late and they can't do anything, and so their hands are tied and no justice is given. And so the point being is that these people they start their abuse cycle once they're in, because they know they're gonna have that like all-encompassing, almost police union level of immunity, because of how desperate the governing body dictates that you have to cover the shit up. Because again, it's more about the optics and how you look to the outside world. I can't get over how stupidly contradictory that is. Than it is anything else. Nothing else matters to them, realistically, outside of how they appear. Which is ironic, considering clearly they know they appear very negatively to most people. And the facade is very rapidly collapsing on them, and they're still desperately trying to duct tape it up. And it's obviously not exactly working. The majority of JWs that are in are aging out. And the younger ones are leaving. So like they're just not, they're gonna run out of people eventually. Except for, of course, the inevitable rare, like, few thousand probably in the world that'll still be adamantly devout. And in fact, because they have that cliche old world religious fervor mindset, they're gonna say, oh, this is proof of insert all this doomsday stuff here, and or persecution and all this other stuff, and therefore they'll become even more fervent in their weird culty beliefs, because, which is how religion technically works. You could even dispute that technically all religions is cults, but that's another story. It's just like, yeah, it's fucking like, what again is oversimplified we call mental gymnastics, because yeah, it's you're literally doing as much gymnastics as possible mentally, cognitively, to retain your dissonance from reality. Ugh.
And so no one is safe. It's not just witnesses or Scientologists. No one's kids are safe.
My former religion had some good intentions.
Nope.
Keep it going.
Nope.
I would say, like, if...
Just to reiterate, especially for Jehovah's Witnesses, if you want some concrete physical proof that it was never created for good intentions, it never had good intentions, look no further than Rutherford, right after he formed it, publicly announcing that religion is nothing but a scam and a racket. And then look at what he was using it for, which is to enrich himself via the donations with cars and mansions. That was his fucking shtick, because he just wanted money. And how do you do that? Manipulate the most vulnerable and desperate people. That's simple.
Stepping forward, then that means that you think it had more good intentions than not?
Okay, bye.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
That wasn't the question.
I want to be alone here.
Okay, it's okay if you're alone.
I know. I'm undecided.
I know, I'm kind of
I'll
undecided
sit here.
too.
I'll do it. I got it.
Boo, unity! Fuck your collectivism!
Can I start with a quote I like? One does not have to act with great malice in order to do great harm. And I think that Jehovah's Witnesses
Two things can be true.
think they're saving the world. When my mom became one when I was 8 years old, she was looking for something. She had always been searching for the truth. And I've interviewed a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and you see a lot of times it's a mom who has some kids. She wants them to have structure in religion. She wants them to have something good. It's a group of misfits and people that were struggling in life, that have come into something that they thought was going to better their life. Now, I know of absolutely...
That's true for every single religion in existence, though. So I would say that automatically invalidates itself, personally.
Absolutely horrendous things that go on behind the scenes. Even in those cases, and as much as I hate to say it, those parents thought they were doing the right thing. They were doing it in a messed up way. I'm not going to sit here and say they're good people or something like that, but their intentions, they think, as misguided as it is, that I am saving my kid by putting them in this thing and by treating them in the way that controls them. so that eventually we can all be happy in a paradise. They think they're doing something good. I know I did. I thought that I was doing something good. And I was not always a very good person in that organization either. I was kind of a jerk.
Very similar. Like my mother, recently divorced, now kind of a single mom with a kid. She was trying to find something that was a good, wholesome place to raise a kid. And it was sold to her as like this glowing, wonderful thing. And Scientology, kind of at its bottom line face value, it has a lot of self-help techniques that are very valuable for people. And with very few exceptions, Scientologists who get into it, these are some of the most well-intentioned people that you will ever find. All of the stories that we've been talking about, they're willing to go through that because they want to help people so much. Yeah. Now they get into levels of indoctrination, but what you're sold at the front door is a whole lot different than what you find out about later. I mean, because one thing that is very different about Scientology is your basic run-of-the-mill Scientologist does not know what Scientology believes in. And there's a demarcation line about right in the middle of their processes that kind of go from the bottom all the way up to the top. And halfway up it's all confidential. But in the front door, they're like, we can help you with communication, we can help you with your money, we can help you, with, getting yourself better. Yeah. And people don't join the group because they are bad. They join the group because they are actually very good.
Yeah. I mean, I think the organization is filled with very
big difference between good and good intentions, I think, as well.
Sincere people. Like, I would say the majority of Jehovah's Witnesses that are either born in or brought in have a true desire to do good. And there are good things that you're taught throughout. Like, there's a level of honesty that you bring, and there's like a lot of affection as far as like within the organization.
The level of honesty is not entirely true, actually. In fact, if you break down the religion as a whole and its doctrine, it requires you necessarily to be a pathological liar. That's kind of like saying that, like, politicians, in order to get into governance via politics, you have to have a certain level of honesty. No, you don't. You have to be a pathological liar to be a politician. You cannot be a politician without being that.
Care, but again, I don't think it outweighs the totality of the organizational harm.
Well, I think that cuts to, I talk to a lot of folks, and the question always comes up, what would happen had my parents never been Jehovah's Witnesses? Yeah. I don't think I would have had a happy childhood, even if my parents hadn't have joined something that gave them a narrative for their dysfunction. My parents weren't healthy people. They didn't love themselves well. They didn't know how to love. And I don't think that they would have ever just found that on their own. They weren't gonna go get actual therapy or help or something. They were looking for something that just made them feel good. And it's almost like an addiction. It dominates everything. They're willing to give up their kids for it. Those are all terrible things. But in the end, they think that that is the thing that is saving everybody.
There's this old expression, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and that is absolutely the case, I think, with both of our groups. I don't disagree at all with anything you said as far as the good intentionness of the various members. Clearly, the management structure and the people at the top, we can question their intentions and their knowledge because they know what they're doing, and they're doing it on purpose. But there's a moral degeneracy at the middle of this whole thing, right? Which is this sort of narcissism that gets imbued in all of us, and this is one of the things that makes it a cult. We're following narcissistic people, and we become like that. And so we then start treating people very, very badly because we know better than they do. We got the truth. They're living lies. They're living in the mud. They're living in sin, and we are above all of that. And there's this whole us versus them that happens as a result of that, where we tell ourselves we're good people and we're good intentioned people, but when you look back at the end of the day to the day-to-day work we're doing, we're persecuting people.
Holier than thou. That's like the most overly simplified way you can put it. Every group of people nowadays is holier than thou. They have this exact fucking narcissism that he's describing here going on universally. Doesn't matter, you can be a vegan, you can be supposedly a BLM person, not Bureau of Land Management, then the newer one, the Black Lives Matter people. You can be the anti-racist, you can be an Antifa, you can be 5,000 other things. You can be of a Christian organization, a Muslim organization, doesn't fucking matter what it is. At the end of the day, you're going to have this weird moral superiority thing, inevitably, or at least your group and the majority will absolutely treat each other in that way, where everyone else is on the wrong side of history. That's a new brand of you're just wrong and I'm right that we hear all the time today that he's describing here. It is a universally true thing, unfortunately, in modern society. It's no longer just politics, religion, it's everything. Everything. Even if people say it's like, oh, well, everything is political now. Technically, yes. Technically not at the same time. But this is where that phrase becomes even more true than ever because, yeah, absolutely. It just makes you think of the Mississippi Squirrel Revival from Ray Stevens even more because that was the whole point of that. Is that he's, he comes up from a deep South Bible thumping, community, or Midwestern, I think, actually. But still, and he's still making fun of that mentality that most of them have because it's bullshit. You can still believe you don't have to be a dick like 90% of them are going to be because I know more than you do, and I have the one true faith and the one true interpretation of the scriptures and the Bible and the one true this and the one true that and blah, 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 blah. Everyone's a fucking narcissistic piece of shit. Treats each other like shit because they're on the wrong side of history, or they have the wrong religion, or they have they have a wrong belief in whatever it is. It goes down to fucking personal medical decisions, or decisions as parents. It devolves all the way down the fucking rungs of the totem pole to the fucking dirt and beyond where it's fucking implanted into. That's where we're at as people in society these days. Everyone's an arrogant prick who thinks that they're holier than thou, higher and mighty, more the moral superiority and everything. It's annoying. And it probably did come from both old world governance politics that are still rampant today, and especially religion. It probably did come from that. To where it might be leftovers from our backgrounds in this, even if it's from generations before. Because if it's been around for so long, like both have, for long enough, like 1,000+ years or more, depending on what you're talking about, you literally have it to where it's going to be ingrained in your fucking DNA, your genetic code, to where certain things will just innately fucking stay put. And that can go all the way down to fucking belief systems, where it can project, in this case, like, I am morally superior to you if you aren't a vegan. Or I am a morally superior, or I am on the right side of history because I am Orange Man bad. Or I am, all Democrats are evil or something. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. It's everyone has that thing. And it's so fucking stupid. It doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. It's irrational. It's fucking bullshit. It's reactive. It's jingoistic. Jingoism. It's fucking bullshit. And I hate people.
We're insulting them to their faces or behind their back. We're judging them constantly. And we are judging ourselves as being on this pillar of truth and goodness. And that's where it becomes this sort of institutional evil.
These narcissistic leaders and people are looking with fucking binoculars for people to snipe, to go after. They're looking as targets. There's nothing good about that. And that's why I don't think anything about these people at the top are good. The rank and file, they have best intentions, but they're also taught to be evil, to be manipulative, to be nasty, cover things up, so that way all of our hands are covered in like blood.
Right.
And when I left the organization, I ended up finding out all the elders had either raped kids, committed fraud. There was cover-ups for murder. They would cover up kids who took their lives when they got kicked out. And I knew these people. I grew up with them. And like 8 to 9 times out of 10, the people at the top were just super fucking evil. And I can't do that. I can't be a part of that. I can't support it. I can call it out. And that's why I didn't step forward. It's like, they're all evil. I got involved with activism down in the Capitol in Sacramento. We found out their legal loophole that all the churches use to not do mandated reporting.
Of course not.
And the Catholic Church and sent their lawyers. Another lawyer showed up representing 22 other Christian organizations. They're all buddies. They all pay each other's bills.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interfaith.
Scientology is totally on board with those.
Yeah,
guys.
they all
Yeah.
drinking whiskey together
Yeah.
to
Right.
cover up
yeah.
the child abuse. And
Yeah.
we made headway, but they lied to their members and had hundreds of thousands of signatures signed to kill the bill. But because they have money and numbers, they're able to cover shit up, and nothing is good about that system from head to toe.
Something I think is important just to pull apart like the evil is it's really hard to say we're going to sue Jehovah's Witnesses or we're going to sue Scientology. But if you try to sue individuals who did individual things, the executives that do this, the elders that do this, like those people have names, and you have enough of that reporting happen, not only does that shine some light on it and start to disinfect it a little bit, but then those people can go to jail, and hopefully it then results in either extreme reform or abolishment of the organization.
Yeah.
Yep. It's the inverse of how you deal with like umbrella corporations, because obviously the umbrella corporations, you never attack what would be the equivalent to the individual person. Now the problem is with that though, is that though it's technically true, it'll never bring, especially the really big ones like the Catholic Church, down to its knees. It won't fucking do jack shit to them. They're just gonna keep getting new people in, and you'll never fucking change a thing. Sure, you got that one person out, but what about the rest of them? They're still immune. Because that's why you still, though it's technically true in the reverse, yeah, you still have to go at the whole fucking the whole monopoly, I almost said megapoly, of the corporation. At the end of the day, that's what you have to do. If you want truly to bring it to its knees, or make it truly repent for sins, it truly actually potentially change, or literally die out and collapse and implode in on itself. It should be theoretically a little easier to do for more niche organizations like the LDS, fucking JWs. I don't know why I forgot all of a sudden. That's so weird. But it doesn't surprise me if they're all in bed with each other either. Because, yeah. I mean, that's further proof that, yeah, the Mormons and JWs, they are, in fact, working together, literally, especially on the corporate and legal side of things. Boy, are they ever working together.
Sexual shame still affects me today.
Man, the Jehovah's Witnesses are all about sexual shame.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Like they're a sex-obsessed cult. They talk about it
Ironically,
all the
yep.
time. From the moment you join or pop out of your family, it's all about shame, guilt, control, and they leave you highly ignorant about it. So when any diddling happens, like the kids don't know what's going on, and they can hide it. I've had to let go and heal a lot of that through therapy. But when you grow up in a highly controlled environment where everyone's in your business, they know who you like, and they think they have people who they want you to date and get married to and reproduce with, and they try to manipulate and control your whole lives, and you're not allowed to masturbate when you're hitting puberty. And then if you do, you have to tell them, and they ask way too many personal questions in those elder meetings of like, what did you do? Did you like it? Was it this porn? Was it that porn? Was it? And then, especially with girls, they get super creepy with girls.
I mean, the level of graphic that they get into, especially when you are a young woman sitting in front of 3 60-plus men, like
alone
without your parents.
Without your parents, and they'll ask incredibly detailed questions about who touched who, how long, if you orgasmed, like very, very detailed.
Did you enjoy it?
Yes.
What did you do?
Yeah, and this whole time they're trying to gauge how repentant you are about it too, but you're
and
also
how
like,
culpable you were in the action, and
even whose fault it is that it happened.
Even women who have experienced sexual assault get taken through the same process.
And most of those elders are abusers themselves. Most of them have molested kids and people in the congregation.
At the very minimum, they're completely unqualified to hold a conversation like that. It is really hard to shake that kind of shame, especially coming out as gay on top of it. Like the messaging throughout the entire organization, I mean, 39 years essentially of indoctrination about what a gross sin that is, and like the level and the money I had to spend to work through it. Like I did neurofeedback, I did therapy, I sought out ex-Jehovah's Witness therapists and coaches and things like that. And it's such an insane process to deconstruct that.
I mean, look at why everyone is disfellowshipped or kicked out. It's almost always sexual sins, right?
Yeah.
Because if they can control a natural biological urge and need for most folks, then what can't they control? And so that's where all the focus usually is. I mean, how many cults are sex obsessed and the leader tells everyone who they can have sex with or who they can't, or he has sex with everybody? You know, I mean, like, isn't that what they all do?
Yeah. Up until just when I left, I realized I'm fairly normal as a human being. I also came out as gay when I left as well. But everything about me I felt was so wrong and bad and was going to lead to destruction all the time. It's drilled in there that it's like, I am a terrible person. I'm so wrong for this. I'm so bad for this.
Well, they keep you disconnected from your body and your emotion.
Yeah.
Like, there's no normal growing up connected to who you are as a person. So once you're an adult and you're deconstructing that, it's like, I was healthy, I was normal, I was okay, but you spend your childhood feeling wrong and dirty and bad.
Psychiatrists are demons in Scientology. They
ours are demons
because
too,
there's past lives and because we've been around for billions of years. Psychiatrists are the universe's bad guys in Scientology. They are the modern incarnation of evil beings who have been trying to enslave populations for trillennia.
Here's the funny thing. I have no experience at all with JWs being anti-psychiatrists because from the time I was like 3 or 4, I think it was 4, my family had me going to a fucking pediatric psychologist, I think, and then really quickly transferred me to a pediatric psychiatrist. And then I was going to the pediatric psychiatrist until, of course, I was too old of a kid. And then they transferred me to a normal psychiatrist, I guess an adolescent or whatever the fuck that would be called, psychiatrist, which... because still has a lot of fucking trauma triggers inside of me. I still feel like I'd punch that fucking asshole out in the face if I saw him in the street. Just not just for myself, but I think for like all the rest of the victims of his fucking bullshit. My point is, this is my whole life until I turned 18, because as soon as I turned 17, I stopped taking my meds because I knew I didn't fucking need them. And it was they were literally fucking killing me, one of them. And because I had going to stage 4, final stage fatty liver disease as a fucking adolescent, fucking stupid. And went off of it for the full year. And like to vindicate myself and to fucking validate myself and to really empower myself, I was so anticipating the day I turned 18 so that I could tell them, especially my psychiatrist to his face, but let alone my parents, I wouldn't tell them. Instead, I would ask them so they could figure it out, which is that like, yeah, so how have I been the last year, would you say? You know, and they're like, oh yeah, you've been like the most stable ever. You've been like super calm, most happy we've seen, you know, like you've been great. You know, it's like those meds are really helping. And I said, yeah, what if I told you that I haven't been taking them for the full year? I haven't taken them this whole fucking time for now just over a year. I literally didn't take them that whole year. The year that you're saying I was at my best. What does that fucking tell you? So from like 3 or 4 all the way to 18, I was in fucking psychiatry. So I don't have any personal experience with JW supposedly being anti-psychiatry at all. Zero conception of that, because it didn't matter what congregation we were a part of. That was just the way it was. And Malosky, which is a circuit overseer I've mentioned before, and my mom knows this because he's been around forever as a CO that goes through our area and our district. He was always extremely fucking kind and nice. He didn't do shunning either, by the way, which is hilarious as a CO because it's like one of the highest ranking guys you can have. He was a Bethelite. So like he was the highest ranking you can get without being a governing body member. And he never got reprimanded for it, despite the fact he never fucking did the shunning thing. He didn't incur that or try to impose that on anyone. And on top of that, he was kind to everybody, and he understood how mental illness worked, and that was a real thing, and that you needed to treat people who might have mental illnesses or trauma or whatever else differently. You need to handle them differently because they require a different it's a different understanding that both you need to have of them and they'll have of life, basically. And you need to get them help, and that includes mental health physicians. So that was his MO, and he was very apt about like, hey, if there's clearly mental health or signs of mental health issues, you need to get them to a psychiatrist or at least a psychologist so you can help them. Like, this is not so like literally even all the way to the top of the top, we had nobody was fucking against it. They talked about mental health actually quite a bit, ironically, and they actually did encourage people that had issues to go to psychiatrists. And it wasn't like, oh, you can only go to a Jehovah's Witness psychiatrist, which are obviously far and few between, or may not even exist. They probably not exist because you have to go to college for that. But they do. They did, recommend that you go to a psychiatrist. So in other words, you could go to a worldly person, ironically, and have your mind worked on. It's very interesting how that worked. So that's a new thing to me, because I had zero conception of that they were anti-psychiatry. So that's a very interesting thing. I understand why they would be, but it's still super interesting that, like, I guess it's more of why my experience in my district, I guess, or the congregations that we were in, including down all the way up to the CO, actually were very pro that, and they encouraged it because it's so defiant of what actually would make sense, which is that they'd be anti-psychiatry and psychology and therapy, because, again, they might start to question. They might leave. They might find out that they've been lied to, or that a lot of their problems psychologically, mentally, emotionally are coming from their experience in this cult. It makes total sense they'd be against it. So that's very interesting. I really wonder about that. That's very interesting. Now I really got to question that.
I would never let my child join the religion I left.
One of the first things that I ever had doubts about was when I started thinking about my children as they started to get a little bit older. I have an 8, a 7, and a 3-year-old. And when I first was thinking that if I ever get remarried, I'm gonna be shunned, I had that realization, and I went, there's no planet that I would ever do anything remotely close to this to my children. And the only thing that I did tell my dad when we had a final conversation when I was being shunned was I would never do this to my own children.
Absolutely.
Realizing that I had never had the feeling of being truly loved or accepted by my parents was kind of a revolution.
Absolutely.
My parents were my best friends prior to this. Like, I was there almost every night. They live right down the street. But it was all gone in like one fell swoop. And I realized that this was never gonna be something that I want my kids to have anything to do with. I told them that I would never be a part of any religion that would tell me I need to have some kind of wall between me and my children, because that feels the most wrong that anything could ever feel to me.
I am yet to speak to a single ex-Scientologist who was not abused or harmed in some way, shape or form. And for me, that indicates that abuse occurs at every level of this organization, in every city in which it operates. And for that reason, if I was to have kids, I would never let them go anywhere near Scientology, JWs, any sort of cult. I would educate them on how these groups work, how coercive control works, and hopefully that will defend them from being manipulated, being gaslit and being lied to by these organizations.
To your point, I don't have kids yet. I do, at least right now, still want to get married and have kids. I would like to have a couple. I don't ever want to see that happen to them. And I know that's what my mom, she went through a lot of abuse too. She didn't want to ever see that happen to me, but it did. And she still stayed in, and that was that rocks your world. And when I do have kids, I have a plan, at least for right now, and it seems to work with my therapist, is I'm gonna take them to the Jehovah's Witness church. They're gonna be by my side. They're gonna go to some meetings. I'm gonna take them to Buddhism. I'm gonna take them to an atheist rally. I'm gonna take them to a pride rally. I'm gonna take them to a magazine, whatever the opposite. I want them to see everything and raise their emotional intelligence extremely high, because that's what is very low in these organizations. They want us dumb. And let my kids be educated and know how to communicate and train them well to be able to spot manipulation from a mile away.
Being able to see different perspectives.
Yeah,
we didn't get that at all.
No. I want to give them the world and whatever they become and be. Like, I'm not going to cut them off. And I will love them as long as they're not like psycho killers or, start diddling kids.
No.
I think I would do pretty well as a parent, however they turn out, and I will expose them to stuff, but they will be right by my fucking side.
It's really clear that we both had very different beliefs in our former groups, but the mechanisms and the tools that they use to manipulate and control us are almost identical, right?
Almost wholly identical.
Exactly. It's all a matter of which levers are being adjusted, but it's all the same levers.
Today we get to pull our own levers.
That's right.
Lots of middle ground in this one, right?
Right. Pretty much all. You guys are amazing.
Lots of black bars are circling the block waiting for us.
Oh man.
We'll protect you.
Thank you.
Is something I've reiterated many times, and that is that there is no difference, literally or discernibly, in any way, shape, or form between any forms of manipulative pieces of shit, whether it's a single person or a group like a religion or a cult or politics or anything else. There's zero difference, because fundamentally, structurally, functionally, visibly, every single aspect is the same, because it's mutually exclusive. If you are manipulative, you are at least a narcissistic sociopath. I do not like it when everybody, including the experts, try to separate narcissism and things like sociopathy and psychopathy, because they are literally mutually exclusive traits. You cannot have one without the other, inevitably. At least with the sociopathy and the psychopathy, you cannot have them without extreme narcissistic personality disorder. You cannot ever have them separated from each other. They are one and the fucking same. You have to, if you have either of those two, you always have NPD. And I mean any form of narcissism, of arrogance, is literal abuse. Especially when you're also a sociopath or a psychopath. Because again, the main difference between both of those is sociopaths are capable of feeling human, quote unquote, emotion or complex emotion. Psychopaths are incapable of feeling emotion at all, especially what they consider human emotion, aka complex or complicated emotions. They're incapable of it. That's the difference. One is capable, one is not. Psychopaths usually are just born psychopaths, whereas sociopaths are almost always victims of abuse and sociopaths themselves. Almost always. Not 100% of the time, so not exclusively, but the mass majority of the time. They themselves have a fucked up childhood and a fucked up background where they themselves directly experienced living under the wrath of a fucking sociopathic piece of shit. I had that. My dad was that. When you're talking about the kids aspect there at the end, you have to learn from your own fucking lived experiences. Some people, they do, and yet somehow they still become sociopaths or narcissistic pieces of shit because they're so broken, or at the very least they're so insecure because they don't know what it's like to have a sense of self, to have self-confidence, to trust themselves and their own judgment and discernment, to trust their own thoughts and thought processes, to think at all. They don't know what that's like because that's how these manipulative pieces of shit always work. They are going to destroy everything they can about you. They're going to do everything they can to demolish every last sense of self you have. Self-confidence, self-awareness, self-reliance, trust in yourself. Every last aspect of self, they want to decimate and desecrate to where it's irreparable. You cannot build it back up, at least as long as you're under their grips and their control, and you don't get the help you need to heal from it enough, if you do somehow escape it, to be able to finally have some stable ground to build those foundations upon. At the end of the day, there's no difference between them because they all collectively do this. So people, individuals, in other words, and organizations, religions, politics, as I keep saying in this video, right? It's because it's so fucking important. There is no difference between them. Once you are manipulative, you are automatically narcissistic. You are arrogant. And once you are that, you are at least a sociopath, potentially a psychopath. You have to learn from that to where you would be like, I'm never going to fucking repeat this. I'm going to learn from it by having experienced it, lived it, felt it, known what it's like to go through it, known what it's like to heal from it, and also looking back on it. So I can be like, never do that. Let's do the opposite instead. because at least that way you can actually give your own kids exactly what they all deserve, what all kids should be able to have and live with and grow up with, and their experiences and everything else, rather than what we had to, which is the exact fucking opposite most of the time. And you're like, yeah, I know exactly what I want to give my kids, and it's the exact opposite of what I had. And in the long haul, technically, you're also therefore gifting yourself, in your inner child, what you never got, that all kids deserve to have and experience. And it's in a way bittersweet and kind of twisted, but also beautiful, because you're now getting to experience this with your own children, and that's fucking amazing. I think it's magical. And so, yeah, like what they were saying is great, because it means that instead of being sociopaths themselves, they're actually fucking understanding, like, hey, we want to repeat anything that we went through. We want to make sure we do arguably the exact opposite that we experienced. That's the right way to respond to that. But yeah, anyway, this turned into a over 3-hour recording for an hour-long video. I'm going to go cry in a corner now and then take myself aback and shoot myself, if you'll excuse me. God damn. But outside of that, whichever one it is, whether you're watching a part or you watch the whole thing, that's cool. Thank you so much for doing that. Let me know your thoughts or your experiences in the comments below. I think that would be amazing. Until next time, stay safe. I'll see you around.